Trump is going to hold a press conference with Prime Minister Netanyahu today. He's already talked about how, the Gaza situation is just not working, and he wants to do mass ethnic transfer, which is obviously genocide.
Palestinians from Gaza.
Yeah, I would like to see Jordan. I'd like to see Egypt take some look. The Gaza thing has not worked. It's never worked. And I feel very differently about Gaza than a lot of people. I think they should get a good, fresh, beautiful piece of land, and we get some people to put up the money to build it and make it nice and make it habitable and enjoyable and make it a home.
They don't want to leave, though. Palestinians say they don't want to leave.
I don't know how they could want to stay. It's a demolition site. It's a pure demolition site. If we could find the right piece of land or numerous pieces of land and build them some really nice places with plenty of money in the area, that's for sure. I think that would be a lot better than going back to Gaza, which has had just decades and decades of death.
Where would those pieces of land be?
Well, they could be in Jordan, and they could be in Egypt, and they could be in other places. You could have more than two, more than one, but you could have more than two, and you'd have people living in a place that could be very beautiful and safe and nice. Gaza has been a disaster for decades.
Would the U.S. pay for that or contribute?
I don't think the UN would pay, but I think there's plenty of people that would in the area. They have a lot of money.
I wonder who made it a demolition site with whose weapon. I think what should be more concerning to people is that they're saying that the Gaza population is now 1.7 million people, meaning over 600,000 Palestinians in Gaza are currently unaccounted for. I think it's pretty wild that Donald Trump is in the simplest terms talking about mass ethnic transfer, which is ethnic cleansing, and there's not like a lot of pushback against it, which is expected, to be fair, because when Joe Biden would say, Joe Biden wouldn't say like, oh, we got to move these Palestinians out of here, they got to go somewhere else, but like when he was defending Israel turning Gaza into, in Trump's words, a demolition site, they also didn't question that either. But hey, yeah, I think there isn't pushback because he's just stating in plain terms what our policy goals have always been without the double speak of the Democrats. Yeah, I genuinely believe that he's stupid enough to not understand that he's advocating for ethnic cleansing. No, I think he doesn't care. That's why someone said, what if they don't want to leave? A lot of Gazans don't want to leave. If you're wondering why Gazans don't want to leave the Gaza Strip, well, it's because the last time that they left their homes, they were never allowed to return. So for Palestinians, it's even that kind of thing is obviously a significant part of their history and their identity. Their entire national identity revolves around being forcibly displaced from their home. Anyway, Witkoff had a take on this after. White House National Security Advisor, when asked about Trump's proposal to clean out Gaza, I would push back on the characterization of cleaning out Gaza. I think President Trump is looking at this from a humanitarian standpoint. You have these people that are sitting with literally thousands of unexploded ordnance and piles of rubble. At some point, we have to look realistically. How do we rebuild Gaza? What does it look like? What's the timeline? I think a lot of people, we're looking at very unrealistic timelines. We're talking about 10, 15 years, not 5 years. And so that is what we have to work through. That's sort of what we'll work through. I don't necessarily know what that means, but Trump's Mideast envoy, Steve Witkoff, when the president talks about clearing it out, he talks about making it habitable. Witkoff also says they're in phase 2 of the deal. We're focused on ensuring that the phase 1 ends as it should, that all hostages who are part of that deal come home, including bodies. Meanwhile, during the phase 1 process, when there's supposed to be a so-called ceasefire, Israel is predictably bombed, as far as I understand, certain parts of Gaza. Hold on. Trump was literally saying the other day that rebuilding over the land in Gaza had real potential. Yeah. They've been focused on the West Bank, which gets zero coverage. There's also that aspect of it too. Another thing is it's also about land ownership. If Palestinians leave Gaza somewhere else, they will have no stake in their own fates and will likely always be a lower class wherever they go. Yeah, there are already tens of millions of Palestinians that live in diaspora permanently with no means of ever coming back, and even in certain instances visiting their families. You know what I mean? Their freedom to travel back to their ancestral homeland is permanently limited. If you're a Jewish person with no connection to that area whatsoever, and you grew up in any other part of the planet, you can go and live there, okay, with ease. But if you're Palestinian and your grandpa still lives in Gaza, you're gonna have a very hard time. You're probably not gonna be able to see your grandparent. Okay, your freedom even to travel to the West Bank is restricted. When you're inside of the West Bank, your freedom of movement is restricted. How are they planning on moving 1.7 million Palestinians Palestinians who refuse to leave, will he just keep bombing? The displaced Palestinians will also be used as a justification to invade Jordan and Egypt under the excuse that the resistance is operating from there, so they're invading for security reasons. Yeah, there's also that. Also, Donald Trump signs an executive order withdrawing the United States from the UN Human Rights Council and UNRWA.
In light of numerous actions taken by a number of bodies of the United Nations, which exhibit a deep anti-American bias, we have an executive order.
You know what's crazy about this, by the way? Like liberals who say, well, guess what, pro-Palestinians, you deserve this for voting for Jill Stein. Number one, Jill Stein, no motion, okay? Even if all Jill Stein voters voted for Kamala Harris still would have lost. That's number one. Number two, you know which administration also pulled UNRWA funding after Israel lied and said UNRWA was involved in October 7? The Biden administration. He is just making it permanent. This is yet another glaringly obvious example of like the uniparty principles of American foreign policy, okay? And not only is it uniparty, but what did I also tell you? It only becomes worse, right? It only becomes more right-wing. Oftentimes, the Democratic Party will not undermine the decisions of the previous administration, like with Donald Trump doing the Abraham Accords and numerous other pro-Israel things that greatly destabilized the region and caused October 7, as I pointed out many times over in my coverage over the past 16 months. Biden's involvement before October 7 was not actually reversing any of the decisions that the Trump administration had made and simply continuing it. Then October 7 happens, and then Biden does a genocide, okay? Biden oversees the genocide and complete ethnic cleansing, right? Attempts of the Palestinian population, making the entirety of the Gaza Strip uninhabitable so that they can inevitably justify mass population transfer. So Donald Trump is basically just moving it further to the right. And then the next administration, if it is a Democrat, if the Democrats ever win ever again, okay, will most likely not reverse those decisions again. That's the one thing that the Democratic Party gives a shit about. The one thing that the Democratic Party gives a shit about nowadays is just like protecting Israel. It's crazy. Anyway, let's watch what Trump's press conference looked like when he was signing a bunch of executive orders, including cutting funding to UNRWA.
Before the press came in, you signed a commission appointing Chris Wright.
Also, the United States government has officially flown undocumented migrants over to Guantanamo Bay for the first time ever, specifically for being undocumented migrants, okay? And not because they're terrorists or whatever. Even then that, that is also not, that is also ridiculous.
Your next Secretary of Energy. We have another commission prepared for your signature.
Yeah, El Salvador is also mentioned that Nayib Bukele said that he would be open to using CCOT as a holdover facility for undocumented migrants away from the United States. It's like really, really horrifying shit. Okay, it is really, really, really horrible.
This is Doug Collins to be Secretary of the VA. Doug Collins of Georgia.
Two very good men.
Thank you, sir. Next up, in light of numerous actions taken by a number of bodies of the United Nations, which exhibit a deep anti-American bias, we have an executive order prepared for your attention that would withdraw the United States from the UN Human Rights Council, would withdraw the United States from the UNRWA, which is a refugee organization, and would also review American involvement in UNESCO, which has also exhibited anti-American bias. More generally, the executive order calls for a review of American involvement and funding in the UN in light of the wilds that, as you've expressed previously.
Watching fascism in real time is fun, man. I wouldn't say fun. How does this lower the egg prices, guys? It's going to be shocking I have a shocking announcement. I don't think the egg prices are getting lower, okay? I don't think any of these things that Donald Trump is doing is lowering the egg prices. I don't want to freak you guys out, but I just don't think that he's invested in that. Use liquid eggs, you fucking idiot. Come on, dude. You think that's the point? You think that's the argument that people are making? Do I have to describe it to you? Egg prices is just a standard for it's a thing that people point to. Of course not, but you get through. Dude, it's not about actually eating scrambled eggs, man. What are you talking about? It's just a standout. It's just a holdover term for inflation. Okay, the cost of goods. Remember how Donald Trump actually, ran on combating prices, and then prices got worse when he became president? It's a proxy. Total aside, but those are more expensive than eggs. New Waffle House announced it'd be adding a 50-cent surcharge to all eggs sold at its location due to the soaring egg prices caused by the bird flu. Yep. Who would have predicted that his campaign promises are all lies? I mean, yeah, it's the easiest thing to say. I said it a million times over. Obviously, he's not going to lower the price of freaking eggs. pigs.
Is deeply unfair to the United States.
So I've always felt that the UN has tremendous potential. It's not living up to that potential right now. It really isn't, hasn't for a long time. It has, there are great hopes for it, but it's not being well run, to be honest, and they're not doing the job. A lot of these conflicts that we're working on should be settled, or at least we should have some help in settling them. We never seem to get help. That should be the primary purpose of the UN, the United Nations. And again, it's got great potential, and based on the potential, we'll continue to go along with it, but they got to get their act together.
What would they need to do, sir, to get their act together?
Well, they got to be fair to countries that deserve fairness. They have some countries, as you know, that are outliers, that are very bad, and they're being almost preferred as countries to those that do their job and are doing a good job, and they have to really, they're going to end up losing, a lot of countries are going to end up losing their credibility like other organizations, and then they're going to be nothing. The potential of the United Nations, and not everybody agrees with me on this, the potential of the United Nations is fantastic if properly run. So we'll see what happens.
How much money are you willing to take away from them?
Well, we're taking away a little bit, but we're not looking to take away money. This is so important that we're really, as you know, the United Nations is largely funded by us. But, and it shouldn't be, it should be funded by everybody, but we're disproportionate, as we always seem to be. But it's something that if it ever lived up to the potential, right now it doesn't have that power.
Next, sir, this is a national security presidential memorandum that seeks to impose maximum pressure on the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Many of these provisions are similar to actions that your administration took during your first administration. The basic idea here is to have every department and agency, or many departments and agencies in your government attempt to sanction and control Iranian activities, particularly relating to the Iranian nuclear program and the Iranian export of terrorism through support of various proxy groups abroad. And the intent here is to give you all of the possible tools to, I'd say, engage with the Iranian government to ensure that going forward they are less of a malign actor on the world stage.
So this is one that I'm torn about. Everybody wants me to sign it. I'll do that. It's very tough on Iran. It's what we had before. We would have never had the problem. You would have never had October 7th. We would have never had the problem had the election gone a different way, which it should have. But this one, I think, more than made up for it. I think we're doing things, and it shows that more than made up for it, much more historic. The Iran situation, hopefully, I'm going to sign it, but hopefully we're not going to have to use it very much. We will see whether or not we can arrange or work out a deal with Iran, and everybody can live together, and maybe that's possible, and maybe it's not possible. So I'm signing this, and I'm unhappy to do it, but I really have not so much choice because we have to be strong and firm, and I hope that it's not going to have to be used in any great measure at all. It'd be great if we could have a Middle East and maybe a world at total peace. Right now you don't have that. When I left, you had peace all over the world, and now you have the world is blowing up. As you know, Bibi is coming in to see me later. Others are coming in to see me. We'll see what we can do. But I'm signing this, and hopefully it will be a document which won't be very important, will hardly have to be used.
So what kind of deal would you be prepared to make?
Well, we're going to see. I mean, we're going to see. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. With me, it's very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Do you support
We don't want to be tough on Iran. We don't want to be tough on anybody, but they just can't have a nuclear weapon.
Do you
Mr.
support
President, are you going to
retaliatory-
engage in conversations with your counterpart in Iran?
I would.
Do you want to block the sale of Iranian oil to other nations?
Well, we have the right to do that, and that's what I did before, and they had no money. They wouldn't have had the money for Hamas or Hezbollah or anybody else. It could have been solved. This thing, if things went the way they should have, this would have
Do you
been.
think Iran is to developing nuclear weapons?
I think they're close. I think they're close. They're too close. But again, you could go back 4 years. I would have said they would have had it during this intervening period. But they're pretty close, Peter.
And why say that you're unhappy to sign it if it's Iran and their proxies who have threatened to retaliate against you and your team by killing you guys for taking out Soleimani?
Well, they haven't done that, and that would be a terrible thing for them to do. Not because of me. If they did that, they would be obliterated. That would be the end. I've left instructions. If they do it, they get obliterated. There won't be anything left. And they shouldn't be able to do it. And Biden should have said that, but he never did. I don't know why. Lack of intelligence, perhaps. But he never said it. If that happens to a leader, or close to a leader, frankly, if you had other people involved also, you would call for total obliteration of a state that did it. That would include Iran. So I'm signing this, and it's a very powerful document, but hopefully we're not going to have to use it.
Mr. President, if the Prime Minister today were to ask your help in striking at Iran's nuclear facilities to prevent the kind of progress towards a nuclear weapon, would you give him the green light? Would it, either to do it himself or for the U.S. to participate with him?
I don't know that that's what he's going to be asking for. I have no idea that it is. You're telling me. We're going to have a pretty long meeting. We're going to be discussing a lot of things, not only that, but a lot of things. And I'll let you know if the time comes to let you know. But right now, that's not something that I can discuss.
Mr. President, when you said if they do it, they get obliterated. Just to be clear, you're talking about if Iran made an attempt on your life.
Yeah, that would be called total obliteration. And I can't imagine they do that. It should have been stated by Biden, but he didn't state it because he had no clue, as you know, as everybody knows.
What is your vision actually for relationship
Do you have
with
anything
Iran?
else?
No, that's all we have.
My vision for
For a
what?
relationship with Iran, and would you? what
I'd
do you
love to
think
have a
Israel
good
would-
relationship with everybody. They can't have a nuclear weapon. That was the only thing that was very important. They can't have a nuclear weapon. Beyond that, it would be very tough if they insist on doing that. They have some of their leadership, I can tell you right now, and maybe you know it, maybe you don't, but there are many people at the top ranks of Iran that do not want to have a nuclear weapon just for that very reason.
Mr. President, what's your reaction to China's retaliatory tariffs?
It's fine. It's fine. We're going to do very well against China and against everybody else. Right now, they've taken advantage of the Biden administration like I've never seen. I've never seen. The deficit with China is about $1 trillion. Think of it, $1 trillion. They're using our money to build their military. And Biden let that happen. We're taking a lot of fires here. We came back. This is like a different place. The good news is we're doing very well. We're doing well with countries that nobody expected we'd do well with. We are respected again as a nation, maybe at a level that people haven't seen for many, many decades. But when I left, we didn't have any wars. I defeated ISIS, 100% of the ISIS caliphate, and now the world seems to be ready to blow up, but we'll see if we can stop it.
Mr.
Have you
President,
reached
update
out
on when
to
you'll
the
speak to
Iranians
President
about
Xi.
any kind of
Say
deal?
it.
Have you reached out to the Iranians about any kind of deal to start those
I would
discussions?
reach out. I mean, I have nothing. I say I'm one that doesn't care whether I reach out or they reach out. A lot of people say, "Let them reach out, sir." To me, it doesn't matter. It's just talk. But I want to see everybody do well. I want to see great countries, and I want to see peace in the Middle East and elsewhere. We're also working very hard with respect to Russia, Ukraine. That's a bloodbath. It's a total bloodbath. What's going on there is incredible. What's going on with the soldiers, young soldiers being killed by the thousands. I mean, literally by the thousands. And we want to see if we can get that stopped. And I think we've had some very good talks.
Any update on when you would speak to President Xi, sir? Any update on when you would speak to President Xi?
No, we'll speak to him at the appropriate time. I'm in no rush.
I might be wrong about this, but I think that much of Trump's actions are what a hegemon does when they know they're losing grip on power. In the past, the U.S. would rely on international organizations like the UN to get what they want. Now they're using direct power to keep control. Yes, 100%. This spells the end of American empire. That's precisely what's happening. And I think we're just going to get more violent as time progresses. So more war, yes, more war. Liberals can't message to save their lives or ours. I know. I mean, they're definitely nice JCP shirt, King. Oh, you could tell. Yeah, I'm wearing underneath this. This is the other shirt that I got. Like $10. Brand called Deluxe. I have no idea what it is. It looked cool. It had a cool fit. Have you reacted to Giannis Varoufakis? Would love to see him on again to talk about this. Yeah, I'm down to have Giannis on when I'm back in America for sure. How do you deal with like the sickening feeling that accompanies all this, especially with Palestine? Chatters, I've told you this already. Being a leftist is being on the right side of history, being correct but too early, and also constantly getting yelled at, constantly engaging in, constantly talking about things that are directly at odds with the powers with the pre-existing hierarchy. You're gonna lose a lot. Okay, that's it. You're gonna lose a lot. So get ready for it. But just, you know, as long as you know that your moral compass is correct and you don't lose yourself to the whims of I don't know, wanting a tiny bit of victory in the short term, you just have to keep putting your best foot forward with the knowledge that you're doing the right thing and you're doing right by others. That's it. Like Jank and Anna lol. I mean, I've talked about this a lot. Reactionary thought is alluring. So when you start training your brain to believe things from a reactionary point of view, you start basically, it's the opposite of muscle training, right? If you don't actually constantly work out, you're inevitably going to become a weaker person. Your muscles are going to go away and then maybe even be replaced with fat. Okay. That's how I feel about critical thinking. If you engage in critical thinking and you constantly do it and you apply it all the time, okay, you cause that muscle not to atrophy. Reactionary thinking, on the other hand, is atrophy, and it slowly creeps in. It slowly creeps in. And it can be on a number of different issues. It can be on Israel-Palestine. And as long as it's left unaddressed, I think for many people, they still can fancy themselves to be progressive, except for Palestine, and go along with it for years and years. But obviously, the events that have unfolded over the past 16 months have caused those contradictions to be in the forefront, which are causing people's brains to collapse. For others, it can be about crime, right? You see crime taking place in front of you and you just kind of lose it, where you go, oh my God, this is like a genuinely emotionally traumatic moment. Why is nobody doing something to address this? And then that's when reactionary thinking kicks in. Reactionary thinking, right-wing thinking, is illogical. It's emotional, okay? You don't care about facts. You don't care about empirical evidence. You care about your own personal feelings and your own broad reception. Okay? So when something happens to you that is genuinely traumatic, it's understandable that something in your brain shifts, where you no longer think about this issue through these systemic solutions, but simply want to deal with it head on, immediately, instantly, take matters into your own hands, or the only systematic solution to it is through a mechanism of enforcement that is more rigid than the past. Okay, reactionary thinking is a puzzle piece that fits in every argument. Okay, in every single argument, you always go, "Oh, I know the reason for this. It's DEI." You know what I mean? I know the reason for this. It's black people. I know the reason for this. It's women. I know why something is happening that is bad. It's because insert whatever puzzle piece that you want to put in there, that reactionaries put in there, their daily flavor. Okay, it's illegals. And the interesting part about that is that it's a captivating way of thinking. It's comforting. It's comforting to feel like you have the answer. It's comforting to feel like you are aware of all of the issues and that their solutions almost always are just someone else. And especially when that someone else is marginalized, then it's much easier to tackle that problem. That's it.
Do you think that conversation can lend itself to the type of freeze that it meant for the tariffs for Canada and Mexico?
There are a lot of people who act like they're doing the world a favor by publicly espousing progressive politics, but the moment it affects them personally, they go full-blown reactionary because they now actually address their own biases. They just said everything you wanted them to say. Yeah, and I think that is actually part of the reason why it's pure projection when like Anna or other people will say like Hassan is totally captive. He's a slave to his audience. Am I radicalizing my audience because I'm a, socialist who loves undermining American empire by doing acts of terror, and I'm actually radicalizing my audience? Or is it actually that I'm a captive to my audience, I'm a slave to my audience, and I have to portray my point of view? Maybe it's neither of those things. Maybe these are genuine opinions that I hold, and I'm uncompromising and routinely yell at my own audience all the time when they say some silly shit. It makes no sense, but it doesn't have to make sense. So when someone like Anna says like Hassan is a slave to his audience, or Destiny used to say this all the time too. Epstiny, Sexpestiny. Hassan is audience captured. Hassan is audience captured. When they say stuff like this, it's actually projection. It's no different than saying you're virtue signaling, right? You're coming to the conclusion that the values that I'm espousing are virtuous, but I simply cannot truly mean it. I must be doing it for some cynical reason. Because if you were in that similar predicament, you'd be doing it for a cynical reason. As a matter of fact, maybe you are actually advocating for the things that you're advocating for some cynical reason right now. That's all this is, okay? And I think for a lot of people, it truly stems from personal vendettas. It stems from personal insecurities. And I think people, maybe I'm like a little too autistic, okay? But for me, I care about your output more than the personal back and forth that we have. There are plenty of content creators who have treated me not so great. And I'm always going to be gracious until it gets to a point where they're just like so overtly hostile that they are deliberately playing the role. Ethan isn't being cynical though. He does think you're racist, but he's also very stupid. Okay. That's not, I wasn't even necessarily talking about Ethan here, but that's funny that you said that. Okay. The point I was trying to make is maybe it's the autism in me, but I don't necessarily care about like envy as much as I, do I feel envious? Sure. Okay. From time to time. Certainly. Okay. Did you watch the full video and fire Frogan yet? First of all, this is the operating, like this is the brain operation that the smartest fans have. What do you mean fire Frogan? From what? Frogan is her own person. She's a content creator on her own. Yes, she mods in this community as well. But like, what do you mean fire Frogan? No. And the answer is fucking no. Over what? Hummus? Shut the fuck up, okay? Oh my God, I can't believe she wanted to make a 9/11 cake. Yeah, let me act like that is the most scary thing I've ever said. From a guy who literally said he wanted to bomb the NRA headquarters, or said that Ben Shapiro would be the first to go to the Holocaust camps. I can't believe Rogan made a edgy joke about 9/11. Oh no, oh, she must be a terrorist. I guess you can only make edgy jokes if you're not a hijabi woman, you know? Like, what are we doing? Where is the consistency, guys? Come on. Also, it's so stupid. Envy and jealousy are different. Anyway, my point was that for me, I think a lot of people that end up trying to make these arguments about how like Hassan is bad for politics and he's radicalizing his audience, yada yada yada. I think a lot of those people actually unironically are coming at this argument from a place of not like a political disagreement, but they're coming at this argument from a place where they have disagreements over something else, maybe jealousy, maybe envy, maybe anger, right? Or resentment over something. But then they try to turn this into a political disagreement because everyone wants to moralize their consumption, okay? Everyone wants to moralize their consumption. Everyone wants to moralize their call out. They can't just be like, I hate this guy, his vibes are off, okay? Or they can't simply say, I hate this guy because he's successful and I'm not, and we're in the same field, right? Like, oh, I don't like that, he left the Young Turks and was able to reach levels of success on his own. It's not about that, right? It's not about that. It's actually because that person is like audience captured, and that's the reason why he's advocating for the things that he's advocating for. He must not simply believe the things that he's saying. Like, all of this stuff is just personal perspectives masquerading as a political disagreement. And as long as there is no real massive political disagreement, I will usually just like let it slide. I don't give a shit. Okay. You also hate your audience to the core? No, I love my audience. I love my community. My community has kept me alive. Okay. If I didn't love my audience and my community, I wouldn't be fucking streaming at 5 a.m. every morning. You also hate your audience to the core? Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. That stuff is ridiculous. Obviously. There are certainly times when I'm very annoyed with members of my community. You know what I mean? And it's understandable. This is a back and forth dialogue that takes place. There's a back and forth dialogue that takes place for 8 hours every day on contentious topics. Clearly that presents hostility, that creates hostility, and happens. Anyway, let's get back to Donald Trump.
What happens? I mean, well, there's a short-term freeze with Mexico, and, as you know, and with Canada. But they've agreed to be very, very strong on the border, stronger than they ever were by far, by a factor of about 30.
It's very funny saying you're afraid of people approaching IRL, because I was reminded of the people that approached you at the TwitchCon and wanted you to fight a certain neo-Nazi. You had no problem being completely confrontational, calling them out. Yeah.
And in addition to that, as you can see, we've been strong because we've had numbers like you've never seen before. I mean, the border is now closed, really closed. And with that being said, we're letting good people come through, and we want good people to come into our country. But the border is closed.
In your talks with Prime Minister Netanyahu today, do you intend to press him about how many deaths there have been amongst Palestinians? Are you concerned about that death?
I talk about that too. You know, both sides mean a lot. I talk about that. I talk about the other side. I talk about everything.
What's your main message to him today during your meeting?
Well, I'm here to listen. He's here to see me, and I'm here to listen. So.
Will you continue to press?
We're doing bodies in spaces. We're doing bodies in spaces. Benjamin Beebe's coming in, and he's gonna do standpoint theory. I'm here to sit my white ass down and listen.
Message. At the right time, I'll give him my
Mr.
message.
President, will you continue to press for this idea?
Take some look. The Gaza thing has not worked. It's never worked. And I feel very differently than a lot of people. I think they should get a good, fresh, beautiful piece of land, and we get some people to put up the money to build it and make it nice and make it habitable and enjoyable and make it a home.
They don't want to leave, though. Palestinians say they don't want to leave.
I don't know how they could want to stay. It's a demolition site. It's a pure demolition site. If we could find the right piece of land or numerous pieces of land and build them some really nice places with plenty of money in the area, that's for sure. I think that would be a lot better than going back to Gaza, which has had just decades and decades of death.
Where would those pieces of land be?
Well, they
Those
could
Arab
be in
countries
Jordan,
don't
and
want
they
to
could
go.
be in Egypt, and they could be in other places.
Your point confused the fuck out of me. Are you trying to separate people's moral image away from their politics? What point are you trying to prove? Like, am I missing something? Don't morals also affect people's political reasoning and their ability to change things? Yes. I never said I separate people's morals. What? No, I'm simply saying that a lot of people's disagreements online, no matter how hard they try to make it seem like it's a genuine political disagreement, actually stems from petty jealousy, pure jealousy, hatred, spite. It has nothing to do with the politics. Okay. Most content creators, myself included, have a decent amount of narcissism in them. And no matter how hard they try to shelter that, that is what motivates them. Okay. I don't think I agree. Okay. Well, you're not a fucking content creator, big dog. Sorry. I know these people personally. Okay. You know, you don't have to agree with me on it, but I'm telling you from my own personal experience, a lot of people act like they have these massively consequential disagreements, and many of them, I'm not even saying that there is nothing there, that their political disagreements aren't significant. There are definitely instances where you can have political disagreements. You're anti-Semitic. Okay, brother, come on. Let's be serious. I think it's narcissistic most of the time. It's just like a narcissistic person who feels slighted and is desperately looking for an out, desperately looking for someone to point the finger of blame at. And if they were to just be like, I don't like this person because, I don't know, he gets, I don't like this person because he gets a lot of praise from a sector like news media and political figures that I actually hope and wish would give me the praise. If you said that out loud, people would look at you and go, the fuck? That's a stupid way to operate. You know, why should I give a shit that like other political figures that you care about don't actually respect you? You know what I mean? That would be an insanely stupid thing to say out loud and admit. So they just go, oh, we have serious political disagreements. And actually, my enemy is ontologically evil. And that's what is the real issue here. Like, they have to masquerade as though there is a real, serious, unexamined, impossible to contend with political disagreement here. And it's not just like a narcissistic crash out. That's it. It's marketing. Now let's get back to the dude who is ruining everyone's lives and also openly talking about doing mass population transfer, ethnic transfer. Okay? Donald Trump.
More than two, more than one, but you could have more than two. And you'd have people living in a place that could be very beautiful and safe and nice. Gaza's been a disaster for decades.
Would the U.S. pay for that?
I don't think the UN would pay, but I think there's plenty of people that would in the area. They have a lot of like to see it. I know that Saudi Arabia wants to see peace. I can see that. And many of the countries there, as far as I'm concerned, they all want peace. I think, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I think Iran would like to see peace too. They've had enough. Don't you think they've had enough?
But the leaders of Egypt and Jordan have said bluntly they have no interest in doing this.
Well, they may have said that, but a lot of people said things to me. They said they wouldn't take anybody back in Venezuela, and right now they're flying them right back into Venezuela. And a lot of people, and they're doing the right thing in Venezuela. The Panama Canal is an active discussion right now. They said things about that, and virtually everything that's been said has been incorrectly stated based on the result.
Doesn't that amount to forcibly displace, or wouldn't that amount to forcibly displacing those people from Gaza?
I don't think so. I think if they had the opportunity, they'd love it. If they had an alternative to Gaza, they have no alternative right now. I mean, they're there because they have.
That's a good point. Trump on LA. It looks like a demolition site. These people want to rebuild today. Trump on Gaza. It looks like a demolition site. These people need to go somewhere else. Yeah. We can't rebuild. It's a demolition site and we can't rebuild. So they just have to go somewhere else. Please go somewhere else. Come on. That would be really beneficial. Yeah.
No alternative. What do they have? It is a big pile of rubble right now. I mean, have you seen the pictures of it? Have you been there? It's terrible to live. Who can live like that? And very dangerous. There's shooting all over the place. There's bombing all over the place on both sides. No, I would think if they had an option of moving to an area, either in a large group or various smaller groups, and take care of the close to 2 million people, I would think that they would be thrilled to do it. They have no, when you say about the Gaza Strip, they don't have an option.
To be clear, you're saying they'd be thrilled.
It's very dangerous.
They'd be thrilled to leave Gaza.
Oh, I think they'd love to leave Gaza if they had an option. Right now, they don't have an option. What are they going to do? They have to go back to Gaza. But what is Gaza? There's practically not a building standing, and they're very dangerous. Those buildings are shifting and they're falling down all over the place, and there's gunfire all over.
While the war was ongoing, rather than now when there's a ceasefire?
Which is what you're talking about?
When it was more dangerous when there were strikes overhead than now.
Well, the strikes could start tomorrow. There's not a lot.
Yeah, once again, it's just like the strikes, it could start at any moment. It could start tomorrow. Like as though this is a natural disaster. It's just a naturally occurring phenomena, and not like an apartheid state doing an ethnic cleansing with American weapons and American political cover, and the war criminal in charge of said ethnic cleansing campaign you are meeting with today, like right now as we speak.
You occupy or reoccupy, and you ethnically cleanse areas from the so-called, especially Area C. Because as Netanyahu and Trump talk in Washington, I think most people now understand that the end game is that there would be some form of an American recognition of Israeli annexations in Area C. And I think what Israel is doing today, displacing the Palestinians in order to cement that horrific plan, so-called deal of the century. Right from the outset of that so-called deal of the century, its logic, right? And I think it's, as I said, it's still an American plan or a Trump White House plan. Is very simple. They're trying to find a third way to.
Is this part of the deal Trump did with Bibi for the pause on the war? That was my speculation. That is what I warned you against initially, that this ceasefire would happen, okay, and that they most likely were going to use as an opportunity to rearm, and then go directly into the West Bank. I said time and time again that this is most likely what the Trump administration's desires are. And I think that that is what's unfolding currently.
To so-called resolve the Israel-Palestine.
The part of this process that is frustrating to me most is that Donald Trump does have the capacity to end it, just like Joe Biden did. All it would take for them is to simply say, cut it out. That's it. That's it. And Donald Trump actually did say, cut it out. And Israel did. Donald Trump doesn't have to make additional deals on the side for Israel to cut it out, by the way, just so you understand. He doesn't have to be like, oh yeah, cut it out, and then we'll let you go into the West Bank. And then Bibi's like, okay, that's the only reason why I'll concede. Like, they don't make the rules here. Okay. They don't make the rules here. We do. We set the standard. We make the rules.
An issue without a two-state solution, hence Palestinian citizenship in a sovereign, independent Palestinian state, nor a one-state solution.
And Trump is now live with Benjamin Netanyahu.
Maybe they don't. We're dealing with a very complex group of people, situation and people. We have the right man. We have the right leader of Israel. He's done a great job, and we've been friends for a long time. And we do a great job also. And I think we have a combination that's very unbeatable, actually.
Can I ask, what would happen, Mr. President? What would happen, Mr. President? What would happen if you hear?
Oh my God, look at him. He's so fucking happy.
Wait a minute. Wait. Where is that person? Where's that person coming from? Come on, go.
Mr.
You go.
President, what would happen if you'll hear from the Israeli side today that they're not willing to go through with the deal to get all the hostages back home and finish the war?
We'll see what happens. Whatever happens, we'll be prepared to handle the situation.
Are the Saudis demanding a Palestinian state?
Mr. President.
No.
Are the Saudis demanding a Palestinian state?
No, they're not. No.
Are they demanding a path towards a Palestinian state or any other recognition
Everybody's
of that
demanding one thing. You know what it is? Peace. We want peace. We want people to stop being killed. But everybody's demanding one thing. Very simple, peace. And he wants peace also.
Mr. President, do you think it's politically possible in Israel to get this deal done until the end?
To get the deal done?
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, is it politically
Why wouldn't a deal get
possible?
done? A deal can get done. We'll see what happens. We're dealing with very complicated people. But a deal can absolutely get done.
Israeli strike on Iran.
We'll see what happens.
President Trump, I want from Prime Minister Netanyahu. We have heard Joe Biden and Donald Trump take credit for the hostage and ceasefire deal. Who do you think deserves more credit?
I think President Trump added great force and powerful leadership to this effort. I appreciate it. He sent a very good emissary. He's helped it along. And, I'll just tell you, I'm happy that they're here. And I'm sure the president is happy that they're here. And I would think that's about enough.
Prime Minister, what about Elizabeth Surkov, the Israeli hostage held in Iraq?
What about the Israeli press taking a press conference in Israel and not in Washington?
We would love to take a press conference to interview Prime Minister Netanyahu. A few more questions. Prime Minister Netanyahu, do you support going forward with this deal and getting all the hostages out?
I support getting all the hostages out and meeting all our war goals that include destroying Hamas's military and governing capabilities and making sure that Gaza never poses a threat to Israel again.
Are you willing?
All three.
Are you willing
Can
to
those
agree? Are you willing
things
to
go
agree?
together?
Are you willing
Can you
to agree
promise to the
Trump's
families that
vision
you
to
do
bring all the
everything to
hostages
get the
back home?
hostages out?
I think that I should talk to
One
President
at a time.
Trump,
So
okay?
I'll ask, do you agree with Trump's vision of getting all the hostages back home, even if it means to end the war?
Well, I'm not sure that you articulated correctly what the president's vision is. You can ask, he can speak for himself. He does that very, very well. I have my own views, 3 goals, not 1, not 2, 3 goals, and I will meet all 3 goals. I think the president can help enormously. He brings fresh thinking. Fresh thinking.
Terrorists who murdered hundreds of people were listed their home as the part of the deal.
It's a horrible thing. We can't forget it. I'll never forget it, and you can't forget it.
They got the right
And
wing.
Some people want to put it out of their memory, but we're not going to ever let that happen.
Why are you releasing the terrorists?
October 7th. That was a horrible period of time, and a lot of people like to pretend it didn't happen. It happened. It's a big group of people that like to pretend it didn't happen, like the Holocaust didn't happen. Same mindset. And now we're going to get this thing wrapped up, and we're going to get it done. We're also dealing, I think, very successfully with Russia, Ukraine. We're going to hopefully get that one done at some point in the not too distant future. That's a complex problem also, but we solve problems. When I left, we had no problem. There was no Ukraine and Russia fighting. There was no October 7th. There was nothing, and some very poor leadership led to a lot of problems and a lot of death. And it's a shame, but we'll put it out. We'll put out the fires. We have a lot of fires, but we'll put them out.
Mr. President, why do you still support a Palestinian state like the peace plan you presented in January 2020? Is this plan still on the table?
Well, a lot of plans change with time, and a lot of death has occurred since I left and now came back. This death occurred not while I was here, but while somebody else was here. It shouldn't have happened. They shouldn't have allowed it to happen. It would have never happened, and that includes Russia, Ukraine would have never happened. Not even a little bit, not even a chance. But now we are faced with a situation that's different, in some ways better and in some ways worse. But we're faced with a very complex and difficult situation, but we'll solve the problem.
If not Jordan, Egypt, what other countries you think might accept Palestinians from Gaza?
Well, I think Jordan and Egypt will. I know they've spoken about it with you, and they say they're not going to accept. I say they will. But I think other countries will accept also. I think that Gaza maybe is a demolition site right now. If you look at Gaza, there's hardly a building standing, and the ones that are going to collapse. You can't live in Gaza right now, and I think we need.
Yeah, the guy sitting next to you did it.
Location that's going to make people happy. You look over the decades, it's all death in Gaza. This has been happening for years. It's all death. If we can get a beautiful area to resettle people permanently in nice homes and where they can be happy and not be shot, not be killed, not be knifed to death like what's happening in Gaza. And right now you have in Gaza a very dangerous situation in terms of explosives all over the place. In terms of tunnels that nobody knows who's in the tunnel. The whole thing is a mess. And I think that if we can resettle, and I believe we can do it in areas where the leaders currently say no. I've been saying that with Mexico, having to do with the border and all of the things, and you saw what happened, 10,000 soldiers, and they're going to do a good job. I really believe that, and I believe Canada is going to do a good job also. They said the same thing, and then they did something much different than what you were hearing. This is a very, very difficult situation, but we're going to get it solved. I don't think people should be going back to Gaza. I think that Gaza has been very unlucky for them. They've lived like hell. They lived like you're living in hell. Gaza is not a place for people to be living. And the only reason they want to go back, and I believe this strongly, is because they have no alternative. What's the alternative? Go where? There's no other alternative. If they had an alternative, they'd much rather not go back to Gaza and live in a beautiful alternative that's safe.
Mr. President,
Would Palestinians have the right to return to Gaza if they left while the rebuilding was happening?
It would be my hope that we could do something really nice, really good, where they wouldn't want to return. Why would they want to return? The place has been hell. It's been one of the meanest, toughest places on earth.
I can't believe a journalist said that. It's true.
I've seen every picture from every angle, better than if I were there. And nobody can live there. You can't live there. So if we can build them through massive amounts of money supplied by other people, very rich nations, and they're willing to supply it. If we
It's
can build
crazy.
something for them and
We're just talking about, we're talking about Palestinians like they're just not human, They're just
5 or 6 areas. It doesn't have to be one area, but you take certain.
We'll
areas
just
and
slap
you
them into
build
an ugly ass
really good
Trump building
quality housing, like a
in the
beautiful
Sinai Peninsula.
town, like someplace where they can live and not die because Gaza is a guarantee that they're going to end up dying. The same thing's going to happen again. It's happened over and over again, and it's going to happen again as sure as you're standing there, Peter. So I hope that we could do something where they wouldn't want to go back. Who would want to go back? They've experienced nothing but death and destruction.
What will you do if Egypt and Jordan tell you no? What will you do then?
Well, I don't think they're going to tell me no.
Mr. President,
I don't think they're going to tell me
What will you do if
I think they're going to tell Biden no, and I think they're going to tell other people no.
So you think it will happen at the end?
I think there's a good chance, yeah.
How
I'd like to
many
see it
people are you thinking about?
All of them. I mean, we're talking
All of
about
them.
probably 1.7 million people, 1.7 million, maybe 1.8 million. But I think all of them. I think they'll be resettled in areas where they can live a beautiful life and not be worried about dying every day.
Mr. President, do you support building settlements, Jewish settlements back in Gaza in the next years?
Say it.
Building settlements, Jewish settlements back in Gaza in the next year. Do you support this idea?
I don't see it happening. It's too dangerous for people. Nobody can go there. It's too dangerous. Nobody wants to be there. Warriors don't want to be there. Soldiers don't want to be there.
They're like, no, nobody, not even, no settlements. We're just going to keep that space empty.
It's going to happen. It'll only be death. The best way to do it is you go out and you get beautiful, open areas with the sunlight coming through. And
No, that's not what I meant.
Something
I meant
nice.
building Israeli
They are not
settlements
going to
back
want
in Gaza.
They are not going to want to go back to Gaza.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, what is your message to the families of the hostages that look at this deal, that are worried that this deal won't go through? What do you say to them at this moment?
Same message I said from the beginning of the war. We'll get them out, get them back. We got over 70%, close to 75% of the people who everybody believed will not get out. We got them in successive deals, and most recently with the help of President Trump. We're not going to give up on any of them, and we're not going to give up on our other war aims. Hamas is not going to be in Gaza, and we're going to get everyone back.
And you would not have.
Prime Minister, how optimistic are you about reaching phase 2 of the ceasefire? How optimistic are you about that happening?
Well, we're going to try. That's one of the reasons, one of the things we're going to talk about here. And if we, you know, when Israel and the United States work together, and President Trump and I work together, you know, the chances go up a lot. It's when we don't work together, Israel and the United States don't work together, that creates problems. When the other side sees daylight between us, and occasionally in the last few years, to put it mildly, they saw daylight, then it's more difficult. When we cooperate,
isn't it the right
chances
time
are
to
good.
hit once and for all?
Say it.
Now that Iran is so weak, isn't it the right time to hit their nuclear facilities once and for all?
Jesus
So you say
Christ.
Iran is so weak. I appreciate you saying that. They're not weak. They're
Bro, what the hell is this guy? Journalists in the building are like, why can't we hit Iran's nukes?
You know, I signed a very strong proclamation.
That guy's not a journalist.
Iran was in big trouble.
That's an
when I left.
insane
They were
person,
broke.
dude.
They didn't have money for Hamas. They didn't have any money for Hezbollah. You had no problem. October 7th could have never happened. When I left, October 7th could have never happened. And frankly, Russia and Ukraine, as I said, could never have happened. They became very strong very fast. They sold massive amounts of oil to China and everybody else who would not buy the oil when I was president, because we said, don't buy the oil. And they became very rich very quickly. But they're not weak. They're not weak. They're strong. Doesn't mean they won't be weak. But you know what? We just don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. They can't have a nuclear
The
weapon.
Prime Minister, sorry, sir, Mr. President, the Prime Minister wants you to strike Iran. That's what he wants.
You don't know what he wants. What do you know about anything? Go ahead.
But is that option on the table?
Yes, please.
President Trump, is that option on the table?
You're not just talking about Jordan and Egypt.
No, could be other places too. There are many people that have reached out, many countries, many leaders of countries that have reached out that would like to participate in that. Doesn't have to be Jordan and Egypt, but I think it would be also them.
Mr. President, your relationship with Mr. Netanyahu knew ups and downs. How do you describe it right
No, I think it's mostly ups.
Mr. President, what about the Palestinian Authority? Should it rule Gaza because Gaza will be empty?
What?
The Palestinian Authority, can it rule Gaza? What do you think?
Well, it's had a pretty hard time, wouldn't you say? I'd say it's had a pretty bad time of it.
Mr. President, Qatar has, you've criticized them in the past as a funder of terrorism, so as the Prime Minister. Do you think they're part of the solution or part of a problem moving forward?
I think they're trying to help. Qatar is absolutely trying to help. I know them very well, and they're doing everything they can. Very tough situation, but they're absolutely trying to help. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Press, let's go. Come on, guys. Thank you. Thank you, guys. You'll see him soon. Thank you, guys. Come on. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go, guys. Come on. Let's go. Let's go. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. You'll see him soon. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Let's go.
Demons always win, dude. Evil thrives.